Town Council. I'm Federica Smith-Roberts and I'm chairing tonight's meeting in the absence of the Chair, Councillor Amber Packer-Hughes. Apologies for the slight delayed start where we had an IT issue, but we'll move on with the agenda that's in front of us this evening. And firstly, we have apologies. So apart from Amber, do we have anyone else's?
Councillor Deacon and Donna Smith.
On to agenda item number 2, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any new declarations of interest that haven't been noted before in our disclosable interests to note? Nice. So on to agenda item number 3, which is the minutes of last meeting. We'll just take a look at those a second, which was on Wednesday, April the 9th. Any comments or questions or changes that need to be made to them at all? No.
You said the 9th, it says on 5th on mine.
Oh, I say it's Wednesday, April the 9th. Have I got that?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm looking at February, sorry.
That's right, don't worry. And they're going, oh, I'm reading something different. So I'm happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder? Ed, and all those in favour? Yeah. Perfect. So we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is the forward plan, which is that one as well. We've got another packed couple of meetings coming up, looking likely, keeping everyone busy. So after today's, we've got the meeting in, is it July? Anyone got any questions or anything that they were expecting to see on the forward plan on the meetings coming up? Everyone happy with it? Do you think there's going to be anything else added as we move towards those dates?
Possibly training policy.
Okay.
Possibly.
And just a question, I guess, myself. Well, I'm understanding rightly, as we move forward, and obviously the forward plan is there to do so, we'll just see the cyclical policies come back round to us, so we'll just get into that rhythm of constantly reading, updating everything.
Exactly. Hopefully moving forward there shouldn't be as many policies, but because so many were created at the start of the council, a lot of them are up for renewal now. So yeah, we're scheduling them out and now we can thin them out again at each meeting.
Any other questions? No. We just note the forward plan, don't we? We don't vote on it. Just perfect. So we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, or the substantive item, which is the adverse weather policy.
Yes.
And over to you.
Thank you. Evening members. Yeah, this is a new policy for the council, and it's come out of a number of different discussions. Principally, obviously, we now have a larger outside workforce following obviously taking on the parks and things like that from April. So our main aspect is ensuring that we keep our staff safe, but also if you look over the last year or so, the increasing number of weather alerts that we are seeming to be getting. So this policy is sort of born from those sort of different angles. And really sort of sets out some principles and some processes that should there be a weather alert, whether that be yellow, amber or red, or as we're moving forward into the summer, extreme heat, then there are processes in place and comms and things like that in place that we should be looking to ensure that members, your good selves and members of staff are kept safe in those circumstances. The intention is obviously is post tonight's meeting that this will be made widely available to all our staff and to the managers, and then they can convey the messages down through the organisation. We will keep an eye on obviously the policy to see how it works, as we do with all policies, but also the other side of the coin is obviously this does complement the business continuity plans, which we will be taking through Ops and Assets tomorrow as well. So that's really for me. I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question just in relation to support the policy. I'm just trying to think about how it would work in practice. So say we had a snow event, and obviously that's an adverse weather condition. I might be wrong in my assumptions, but sometimes it's about some of our team probably going out to help clear
Yeah.
the way. So I guess it's a balance of how do we make sure that we protect our staff. I guess it's about having the right equipment or weather gear and being in the right health to do so. I guess the same with extreme heat, that we may want to, I don't know, hand out water to people. I'm trying to think of a scenario, but I'm just wondering how we kind of balance kind of our needs of supporting the public as well as our staff's health and well-being.
I think in respect of things like snow, if then I think we would probably, obviously beyond clearing the most important things that are relevant for us as a council, if there is if Somerset Council declare an emergency planning issue or emergency for a particular area or particular, then I think we would probably then be called upon to actually go and help. But then we have to make the decision as to whether or not our staff are safe to do so. And again, as you say, they need the right PPE, the right equipment. And you know, at the end of the day, if our staff are going to be safe, then I would imagine that the decision would be made at the time, and we wouldn't provide staff. So in respect to extreme heat, again, it's the same principle, really. You know, it really depends how wide are the messages and what the concerns are. It might well be water, you know, it's the sort of typical situation where you get something like that and a water pipe burst, doesn't it, or something like that. So there might be opportunities to do that. But again, the principles are there and making sure that the shade, they keep water themselves, they keep themselves safe in some respects, but we monitor that accordingly.
And I guess the other two questions, and I'll bring Ed in. One around, I guess, do we relax office attire? I don't think we truly have like a work uniform, but the fact that where I used to work, and again, we're even more relaxed now than we were a couple of years ago, try not to be stereotypical, but the men could take their ties off on a hot day when we were kind of experiencing it. Actually, we now dress codes are a bit more chilled. So I guess there's just something about that. And then maybe it's a note for me to pick up with Donna, but I was just thinking with my civil contingencies hat on, and when you said that, if Somerset Council were to declare an emergency, let's say Taunton flooded, just about, I don't think we've quite got to the space, have we, of doing our own civil contingency planning and our own kind of neighbourhood plan, because we're such big.
Yeah, what we've done is stage one is we've got our own, we've created our own business continuity plan. So we've created our own plan B should we not be able to deliver normal service. So that they're going to Ops and Assets tomorrow night. What we haven't done, and what the next stage is to create and to be very clear what our responsibilities are in respect of emergency planning. That we haven't, I think we've started to have some initial conversations, and I think Somerset Council were very keen for us to try and create some local neighbourhood plans. I think for us as an organisation, let's create a more overarching policy so we're very clear what our responsibilities are, because in the majority of cases it's more about being a support and adding to whatever the situation is. So if it's flooding, it may be going some of our maintenance staff or our outside staff going to help clear a particular area or whatever. That's the next stage, and that's one of the next pieces of work on my agenda is to write some emergency planning, probably say guidance more so than a policy, but emergency again. Yeah, so that is on the agenda to write. So
Ed, you wanted to come in?
Yes, just going on that point, what we kind of need, well, what we need sort of training for staff in that, are they going to be sort of treated as kind of like an emergency service? You know, are they going to be in situations where they're, you know, having to potentially save lives as such?
they should. I wouldn't say no, because you never say never, do you? But there might be a situation where if we're in an emergency planning situation and we've had really bad weather and really bad rain, then you might find yourself in a situation where a car skids, and a natural instinct is to get out and help, isn't it? You know, that I think is fine. What I would be not be, I don't think we as a council would be clear about is actually without clear guidance of what we're doing, what staff need to do, how long for, etc. Would we automatically go out and do something without that more control behind the scenes? Because otherwise, the key aim of this, and probably in all fairness to business continuity as a wider agenda item, is ensuring that our staff are safe and ensuring that we can continue to provide service. So, you know, working on those bases, then we just need to make sure we've got real control over the situation. and that we're not sending staff out to do something that they may not be wholly adequately, you know, have the equipment for, whatever.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I please?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of things. One I'm concerned about, and one I was reading over the home and I looked up now. You were saying about if staff can't get into work, maybe because of snow or something, they have to take either annual leave or unpaid leave. I've never heard of that. Most companies would say it's one of those situations that the staff
The
get.
majority of staff who can't get into work for snow, or I live in Minehead, so the roads flood on a regular basis. So the majority of staff now work from home, can work from home. That's one of the things that have come from COVID. There's no doubt about it. But you know, at the end of the day, we have to cover eventualities. There will be families, or there will be mothers and fathers who, for whatever reason, the school is closed. The children need to be looked after. With the best one in the world, you know, trying to work from home with a child running around or children running around is not necessarily conducive to a good work environment. And so therefore, you know, in those circumstances, they may want to take some leave, or if they've got toil time, you know, in the unlikely circumstance arises, then yes, they might have to take some unpaid leave.
The other thing is that most parish councils have their own salt bins.
Oh, right.
We don't. And that's something I think we should be looking at. Because it's not, you know, our people can't maybe sort a path, but if a bin's somewhere, people do it themselves.
Okay, I'm not sure where the border with Somerset Council on that one, but that's.
No,
which is
Somerset
something
Council
I know.
Somerset Council doesn't no longer do.
Oh, right.
They grit the main roads. I want to say this off the top of my head because I get confused sometimes with sandbags as well. But yeah, they grit the main roads. But yeah, parishes can take it on themselves and make sure that they also do some. But I guess that would form part of our kind of civil contingency.
That will be part of our emergency plan, and that we can build into that. And hopefully over the next few months, I'll start developing that, and I can come back to members with a draft, so you can start to see the direction of travel we're going in on that one.
Any further questions? So I'm happy to propose it. I just need a seconder. All those in favour?
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and I think so to Nikki, is it for time off in lieu report?
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got a bit of me now, sorry about that. So the toil policy was an existing policy which has been reviewed, and when reviewing it, we've just tried to provide a bit more clarity, particularly around overtime payment. So a lot of the time it's referring to toil/overtime, which we needed to split out, because overtime payments are only made in certain situations, and toil is more preferable for employees to take. We want to properly manage toil, just to ensure that employees are reimbursed for their time, whilst also looking after their well-being and work-life balance. So we've added things in like making sure they can only accrue a certain amount of toil, and meetings are in place in terms of how, you know, planning to take that toil, etc. So happy to take any questions on that.
Questions?
It seems straightforward.
I'm really comfortable with this, just from my view. I guess we'll do some form of communication back down to staff just to explain. I guess they already know expectations, but just to reiterate that the policy is slightly changed, and yeah,
we'll send out communications about the policy, and we've also added a bit in there about informal recording. So we're trying to encourage that employees take earn toil and take it within a couple of weeks wherever possible. So it's like flexible working, and only if they can't take that in those couple of weeks, then we would record it formally in Staffology. So we'll need to communicate that to employees, definitely.
And I guess as we're getting bigger now, I guess it's making sure that each manager everyone can manage their teams in different ways, but there also needs to be some form of consistency as well. So I guess it's just about how yourselves oversee that. Does that make sense? Because you wouldn't want someone being treated over here differently to this person over there.
I'm happy to pick that one up. So
Yeah.
SLT this has been something that we've discussed quite a few times, and I think absolutely agree that we need to make sure that everyone's experience is consistent regardless of who their manager is. The policy changes that Nikki's put in place, this definitely reflects more the reality of how we're operating than the previous one was. So I think, but yeah, absolutely agree. We'll make sure that we.
I don't have any other questions or points. No. I'm happy to propose. Liam second. All those in favour? So the next item, I think it's back to you, Nikki, to talk us through disciplinary policy.
Yes, thank you. Again, it's an existing policy, disciplinary, which we've updated to reflect devolved decision making again, because we're getting bigger. Previously, the disciplinary policy referred a lot to the town clerk to make decisions. This has now been devolved to service managers. We've also taken out the appeals section, you'll have noticed, out of disciplinary and grievance, because we have a new appeals policy. We've also added more information about the roles of employee and trade union representatives, etc. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
I was just thinking, I did have a question on this. It's just gone back out of my head again. But that was it, training the managers on this. So have we made sure, or I'm assuming we've done lots of training, but for our service managers, that they've got kind of the experience or even the training to be able then to like take these decisions, or have we got kind of people on like not I guess a management program so that they can learn these skills along the way, or will they get support from the town clerk, deputy clerk who've done it before to then give them kind of support? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I'll hand over training a bit to Bryony, but in terms of any casework that's done, any employee relations things, there's myself and Zara as well. Any investigations that take place, HR have an overview of those, and then we support on panels as well, just to provide that consistency across the board and ensure people are following the policy. And then training.
Yeah, training wise, so it was picked up in our, it wasn't part of the ILM actually, it was to do with the training that we had with Sarah that I brought the report back about a little while ago. So it was something that was discussed around sort of the skills of, you know, having to open an investigation, how to conduct conversations that you know are likely to be difficult, things to consider and those sort of things. So it is something that we've had training about. However, I think training and reality can be quite hard, can't they, especially when you've got emotions mixed into it. So we would be very much guided by Nikki and Zara and probably Donna as well, if I'm honest, in the occasions that it comes up. It's something that you never want to think about coming up, but yeah, it's I feel like the policy is robust enough to take the emotion out of it if we're ever in that situation.
Any questions?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, there's a couple of things in it. You mentioned about disciplinary, about warnings, but you don't actually show what warnings there are. Now, most companies would give 2 verbal warnings, 1 written warning, and then 1 final written warning. That's not in there at all. I think that should be there.
It should be as an outcome of the hearing. I don't know which page it's on. Should be after the hearing.
Yeah, page 11, they get a first warning and then they get a final written warning.
Is that correct? Because I thought it was 2 verbal warnings, then a written warning, and then a final written warning.
I think it depends on the severity of the
What the defence, yes.
happen. So sometimes it has an accumulative effect, like you've just sort of mentioned, but there might be instances where, you know, gross misconduct's been found and be looking at dismissal without those sort of lower warnings.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other queries? No? I'm happy to propose again.
Second it this time.
Right, second. All those in favour? Do a little circle around the room.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You're going to go now? No. So we've now got the grievance policy, Nikki. So has this been updated as well because of like the changes and staffing structures for service managers? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So devolved decision making, and then we've added in some additional pieces such as what happens if we've got a collective grievance. So if a number of employees wanted to make a complaint, again, more information about the role of the representative, and also about grievances that are raised during the course of disciplinary investigations.
You just help me just with my knowledge about our interactions with unions as a town council, because I'm only used to it on large scale Somerset and SWT levels. So just how we work with them, because I'm just interested on the collective grievance, and probably there may be union involvement in that, or just we got, I guess, examples of what's happened in other councils or where this would kind of happen.
So we have, I mean, although we don't recognise a trade union, we do have employees, I believe, who are members of trade unions, and obviously they can bring them along to formal meetings. But in terms of, you know, dealing with a trade union, we don't deal with one particular one.
Where would you see the collective grievances coming up? Because that's a new element into this.
So I guess if there was an issue with a piece of equipment, or if people weren't happy with some,
Like Christmas working hours
Yeah,
or something,
something
people
like
might
yeah.
join forces to. I mean, it hasn't happened.
No, it
but-
hasn't happened yet. But I guess it's just a case of, you know, if there was something that a group of employees weren't happy with, rather than us getting lots of individual grievances about the same thing.
Yeah.
You
You would hope lots of it would be done informally before getting to the formal stage. I'm just wondering, when it comes to the collective grievance, whether there's something there about member involvement. Because we've got it, if there's a grievance relating to the chief executive's town clerk, that member involvement, but I'm wondering if you're hearing it from multiple people, whether that just needs to come, I don't know, or whether just members need to be aware, whether that's the chair of personnel. It might not be a personnel matter, it could just be,
That's the thing.
yeah.
I think my only concern with that might be, and this isn't suggesting that it would be, but if someone had a grievance and knew that if they got a
Please
friend
remember.
on board, that it would escalate it through that channel.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's
It
true.
might be used. I'm not suggesting that that would happen, but it opens up the possibility of it. I think if it was something that was in the interests of personnel, in terms of the concerns were around welfare, even if it wasn't a group setting, if we felt it was appropriate to have discussed outside of a recorded committee, then we would use judgment to do that currently, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Questions? Yeah.
Right. This I do know something about. I've been on both sides. I've actually been a convener for the union, and I've also been on a management thing. There's nothing wrong with what's in it. I agree, everything that's in it, but there's a couple of things which are not in it, which seem to concern me a bit. One, there is nothing mentioned that a person that has a grievance has a right for to have legal representation. That's not in it. And they have the right to do that. ACAS agreed that a couple of years ago, that would be, that person every person has the right to have legal advice. The second thing was that when a person comes to agreement, it's said that their friend, I'll take a friend or work colleague, can't talk for them. And the other thing that ACAS disagreed with that, because they said that as far as they were concerned, some people are not used to speaking in public into a meeting and get worried. And sometimes it's right to have someone actually act as their go-between. And that, I think that should be in it too. That does concern me, it's not there.
So we've listed out sort of what the role of the representative is, and I know that we would allow, you know, if there was something that the employee wanted read out, for example, for the representative to do that. I'm not aware of the legal representative. I can certainly, you know, check that and if necessary,
Yeah,
add
we
that
can-
to the policy, but it's not something I've come across before.
We fell foul of this when I was with the Public Health Service, that we had a similar kind of policy, and we were told by ACAS afterwards, they have a right. The chap brought someone with him, a legal person with him, and we said no, that he wasn't allowed to speak. Well, apparently we found that was wrong. The second thing, or third thing I was going to bring up, normally the panel, which deals with grievances, has a chair, and the chair's not, could be personnel, or it normally is chair personnel should do it. And the officers, but also two independent people. Now, most councils, and that includes Somerset West and Taunton, they would have two councillors on it as independent people.
Not a grievance.
Oh,
lead,
standards.
maybe as a
Standards, wasn't it, rather than, oh no, oh,
It's close to it, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
trouble. Because otherwise they feel that it's the top management of being is the ones that are judging them, if that makes sense. Whether they have independent people, that stops that happening.
so just on the legal right to be accompanied, just on a quick Google from law workplace representation, it says the legislation states that only types of person you're permitted to assist upon being accompanied by must be employed by or an official of a trade union who is certified in writing as having experience of or having received training in acting as a worker's companion or another of the employer's workers, i.e. one of your work colleagues, no one else, not a solicitor, not a personal friend. So we might just need to take it away and double check with
Check it.
ACAS.
Well, yeah, just in case. Overall, I agree with it. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if those things are missing, we need to be up to date with them.
Any other questions? No, I'm happy to propose. Ed, a second. Perfect. All those in favour? So we'll go on to the appeals policy next, is it? Nick, is this yourself?
Yes, it is. So this is a new policy. We've taken the appeal sections out of disciplinary grievance because we felt that, you know, if you've got it in lots of different places, it's just easier having it in one place so we can update it. Again, devolved decision making apart from member appeals. So at the moment, it's member appeals for every decision pretty much. We've changed that to have town clerk, the town clerk as the hearing appeals, apart from in the case of dismissals, because our scheme of delegation states that they're going to keep that as it is. And again, we've added a bit about the role of the representative, and we've also listed the reasons for the appeal to come in. Happy to take questions.
Any questions, comments? I quite like it being separated out. It means it can't be different in multiple different documents, can it? It can just refer to the one document. And again, with the members still being involved on the dismissals appeal. But no, I've got no. Propose it then. Liam seconding. All those in favour? So we'll move on to the next one. But this is more of a positive one now. Equal opportunities.
Equal opportunities. It's a revised report. To be honest, very little change has been made to it. So it's pretty similar to as it was in June 2023. But as you said, and hopefully it's a positive policy. It's more of a commitment statement, I think, than anything else. Happy to take questions.
Questions on this one? Okay, so Ray's going to propose. Need a seconder. Go on, Ed. All those in favour? Perfect. That was nice and easy. So we're now on to dignity at work policy.
Dignity at work policy. Again, it's review of an existing policy. We have added some additional bits into the policy though. Again, we've just sorted out the devolved decision making, but the new sections are about upward bullying, so sort of bullying of a manager above you, confidentiality, and also the support that we give through our employee assistance programme. Happy to take any questions.
I was just going to, sorry to tag on the end, just going to raise a point that Councillor Packy Hughes made in the agenda setting, where one of the comments that she had, which I thought was a good one, was the potentially renaming of it, because it doesn't really do what it says on the tin at the moment. I think if you were experiencing bullying and looking for the policy, you might not find one that was called Dignity at Work. So that was one of the points that should come up against.
On the 6th page under bullying, it's got, an example of bullying might be someone at the same or junior level undermining your authority, but then underneath also saying, being held accountable. I suppose, how do you sort of make a determination between those two? Is it sort of, going through the formal process, or is it?
So I didn't hear the first bit. So
Sorry.
it's okay.
So it's this part of
Oh, there it is. Being held accountable
Yeah.
for performance or behaviour. I think in that, we're just trying to. It's it can happen, can't it? When somebody gets performance managed, especially if it's quite an intense performance management process, then it can be perceived as bullying, or you're picking on me. I guess from that perspective, what we'd be looking for, and please interrupt me if I say something different, is we'll be looking at the manager, we'll be looking at why the performance is being managed or why the behaviour is being managed. We'd be looking at sort of evidence. Okay, what's happened? Has there been targets put in place? Has there been support being put in place? So we'd be looking at like a paper trail really from the manager to understand why things are happening, and actually is it a case of somebody being targeted or being picked on, or actually are they just being robustly managed? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think you're right though. I think it can be a perceptional thing, can't it? So I think at any stage we would be likely to ask for second opinions. For instance, if there was for someone in that position might feel like a 3 times a week check-in is excessive, and actually it might require another manager to kind of come in and hear both sides of it and make suggestions that might make it feel sometimes the delivery and the landing can be the thing that makes it so. Not an easy one, but as Nikki said, I think there's good measures in place to gauge it, and that would include the reviews, possibly by someone who's not close involved in the situation, just to manage if there was a perception of bullying or even overbearing conduct. We want to make sure that we review it.
Okay. Thank you.
My only comment is actually to agree with Amber on this, and the fact that when I saw Dignity at Work, that wasn't the paper that I thought I would be reading. I was expecting something totally different. So I'm wondering, rename would probably be the best thing.
I think we were both sort of
I was expecting, like, I don't know, something about medical conditions or what you wear or something, and being treated with dignity for those. Does that make sense? Rather than behaviours.
There was a reason, wasn't there, for the Dignity at Work? I think I'm just trying to remember the whole conversation in a well-rounded way. What was the reason for keeping it? Was it that other people were starting to name there's the same thing and it's more recognisable?
Unless we call it Dignity at Work /
Bullying, harassment.
Yeah, because if I was like going onto SharePoint going, I'm looking for something to do with how I'm being treated, I wouldn't go dignity. I'd go, I'm being bullied or harassed.
potentially maybe even start with bullying, because if it's in alphabetical order or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then,
And then slowly, if Dignity at Work becomes more mainstream or the norm, people pick up at that as part of.
I think, like you said, anybody who's wanting to access it wants to get to it as quickly as possible
Yeah.
if they're having a bad time, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me with this, who's going to be monitoring it? Because recently at another place I'm at, a lady there took an exception for someone calling her darling, and she took exception, which this covers that kind of thing. But it was the way the chap actually spoke, it was his way of saying things, and that worries me that someone might take it totally wrong and cost the council money, but also cause a lot of problems. There is a problem with that.
So in terms of monitoring, do you mean sort of across the organisation?
Across the organisation, that, you know, it says about councillors, well, I might come in one day in a bad mood and say, oh, for God's sake, you could take that as me really not being dignified, you know, you're getting dignified treated, and you could take that an offence of it. That's the truth. That does worry me slightly.
I think so. We've got some training for our employees, haven't we? On this on IHASCO, and we as HR do have a bit of an overview of what's going on across the organisation, because we are pulled in quite early to these sorts of things for sort of coaching people through the process. So in effect, I guess we're monitoring from that perspective.
Just trying to think of recent examples. I think in an example, we haven't had that particular example, but it's likely that that would be managed by either or both parties approaching Nikki or a trusted member of SLT, and hopefully it would be resolved by mediation on a very.
The trouble is, if you get, you know, most people are common sense, they listen and think, what, that's the way a person talks, but some people do take offence of silly things, and that's the last thing, getting lots of that coming rising up his head. I would hate to see that happen. And it say it down that you can't have it. It happened to me a fortnight ago. The very same thing. The very same thing that happened.
I guess it's about having processes in place, because
Yeah, to make sure.
if someone doesn't like being called something and they're then said, please don't call me that, then if something happens, it's the element, isn't it? So, but again, it's all about training as well around equal opportunities, around sexual harassment, and around being treated with respect. So we've got all those kind of trainings, haven't we? So to help our colleagues and stuff. So
including councillors. Some
yes,
councillors are worse than.
There is we ran equal equality training, because I went to it with.
Yes,
I went to that because Tom.
Maybe I didn't.
Okay, because Tom Rutland ran it.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we can get a catch up for councillors that didn't attend, because it was really good around educating and just reminding those people. Any other questions? No, I'm happy to propose. Second by Liam. All those in favour?
Right.
Perfect. So we've got safeguarding policy.
Again, this was me. It's a new policy that our deputy town clerk asked us to put together. This has been written in line with best practice and outlines town council's commitment to safeguarding. So this policy hopefully outlines definitions, confirms roles and responsibilities, and our reporting of any safeguarding concerns to Somerset Council. We've got nominated service safeguarding leads who are our service managers. So that hopefully means that, you know, we've got a number of people that employees can go to should they have any safeguarding concerns.
I've got a few questions. Have we offered safeguarding training to those service lead managers?
No, but it is. I mean, the training for us, not to put too fine a point on it, is pick up the phone and ring in.
Somerset Council, yes, yeah.
So it would be a very short course, but we can definitely.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's something about people being aware of things. So I guess where our like open spaces teams are out in playgrounds, as an example, just being
in the signs,
recognizing the signs so that they can maybe then flag up or something, you know, when you just get that gut kind of feel. I'm wondering if there is any guidance, or if Somerset Council have got any guidance, because I thought they used to pass stuff down it might be different because it was the housing arm of SWT, but I thought they used to pass stuff down because they used to be the head of housing. He was a safeguarding lead. So I'm just wondering if there was something.
Certainly ask the question, so I've still got email addresses and things, but we may be able to get something sort of basic on iHusco, just for all staff, and then potentially if there's something more specific.
Yeah, there was just, it's just like little things, and it's not, you know, our role, I guess, to do it per se where it's safeguarding under the unitary. But, you know, we ran that really successful community day in Priorswood the other day, and I presume I couldn't go, but there were probably our teams in attendance. And so it's just little things like that that kind of go, okay, is there anything that we just need to think about? We you know, when we do Taunton together, we'll run like an area and stuff.
Yeah.
So, Ed?
Yeah, so the school I work at, we have sort of like a website called CPOMS, which you might have heard of. And yeah, that is just a website literally for reporting something you've seen or have heard and you have a concern for. So I'm guessing, I don't know if we can do something similar where that can just compile a report and then that should be, you know, confidentially passed on to Somerset Council.
I think that links in, that's the new system, isn't it, where I think the schools talk in, but no, definitely just, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll send you a link to the.
Just having a look at the Somerset have got some signpost into some agencies that look like we could approach them for local training.
As a governor of a school, I've had to read a whole kind of safeguarding document around just keeping children safe and everything. And so, yeah, I just wonder if there's something that we just do for those, so they just feel like they've got a bit more awareness. Any other?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry. Safeguarding is a nightmare as far as I'm concerned. I've just done 5 courses for the Minster. That they're an hour each course, and that just covers what we deal with. But that's elderly people, people with disabilities, children. Maybe a course like that might, but it won't do any harm. But it is a long course. There are long courses. But I think they're they're really worth doing.
I think if you, we've got a recommendation that makes it better, doesn't it?
So somewhere like the Minsters maybe doing them, it could see why
Yes.
we would probably do them as well at kind of a set level.
Joe has a lot of contact with the Minster. If she talks to Jason there, he can put her in touch with the right people. It is a non-minefield. Good.
I've got no further questions. I'll propose.
Second.
Second. All those in favour? Well, so we're now on to, we have such a varied agenda, but we're going to talk about pensions discretions policy.
I didn't write this before, this is Dale, but she assures me that no change has been made to our pensions discretions. It's merely been updated in line with job title changes. So Dale is the senior finance officer, senior finance lead. So she's signed this off and is happy to put it to you to consider.
There'll be nothing wrong with it.
No, I know, that's what I was just going to think. They're very, like, I've not read a document like this for a long time, probably since last year. I don't have any questions on it because it's a very technical financial document in relation to pensions. So I'm quite comfortable with it, and it does give us what our policy decisions are as to what we will and won't do, aren't we? So it does try and make it clear for us in the right hand column.
Yeah, yeah.
That
It's
will
quite
not
lovely.
extend 12-month time limits as an example. So
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
No.
I'm proposing, unless there's any questions on this. I'll propose. Ed seconding. All those in favour? Perfect. So move on to the purchased additional annual leave scheme.
Okay, this is a new scheme that we have created. Actually, we had a couple of discussions about additional annual leave at personnel committees previously. So hence why we've pulled this together. So the reason for this scheme really is to promote good work-life balance to our employees. This is a scheme that the employee will request additional annual leave, so they obviously get their normal leave entitlement. And I think I've given a bit of an example within the report about somebody that potentially might use their normal annual leave entitlement for caring responsibilities, and then maybe additional annual leave they might think I can do something nice for myself to relax. This is a request to the manager. It has to fit in with service need. The manager can choose to partly accept the request, or they might accept it in full, but they do have the discretion to turn down the request as well. It should be a fairly cost neutral employee benefit to us. So we get savings through NI savings. Although people will be absent from the workplace a little bit more potentially if they take this type of leave, we would hope that it will lead to increased engagement and productivity across the workforce. Take any questions.
I'm really pleased to see this bringing forward, because I think I spoke about this. So only because, you know, as I said, I've purchased some from my employer this year because I'm living my best life having turned 40 and I need some time off to be able to do that. So I think it does just allow people that flexibility in today's world, that if they need it, that it's there. My only question is whether what we do about rolling over, I might have just missed that.
Just say
So-
no rollover.
No rollover. So but could they have used their additional leave?
Yeah.
Like,
But what if they've got some of their extra, their normal leave left? So say they didn't need it, would we buy it back, or would they, how would it work?
So we would always say, so it goes into a pot, additional leaves used first,
Okay.
okay, bought,
Yeah.
and then it goes to your normal leave,
And
and
then we
then
would follow.
normal rules apply for carryover.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to double check, because in case they didn't need it. No, I just think this makes us again just feel a bit more modern in our way of working, that it's about being adaptable, the fact that the manager can control within reason, you know, the impact on the work environment. So again, just manages how their teams work. So it's positive for me.
can I just go back on one thing you just said now? I worked for a company years ago that, say, for instance, I was going to go to Australia next year. I would say, and I'd only be allowed a month's leave a year. I could carry 2 weeks of the year I'm in across to make it 6 weeks. We're not doing that, are we? That's what I was confused
To
with.
be a bit careful in terms of making sure that people have their statutory leave and they use it. We want them to make sure, you know, we want to make sure that they always use their statutory entitlement. So I think we'd be a bit reluctant about people pulling from one year to the next. So hopefully this will mean that they would be able to still go on that holiday to Australia.
I like also how we talk about what a part-time person can do, because we've got such a varied workforce, so it's positive. Any questions or comments?
No.
I'll propose this one. All those in favour? Perfect. We've now got the employee recognition policy amendment to wording.
Should give you a break. I just feel like I might be taking the credit because it's your report, but I'm happy to talk about it. So it is only a change to an existing policy. So we had our first tranche of the staff awards policy.
Yeah, nominations were, weren't they?
That's right.
That's right.
And we're just starting to look at our second tranche now, and it's highlighted a bit of an oversight which came up on the initial one, which was all around there's one of the awards which is teamwork excellence, and I think in the original policy we had to put a prize pot of, I think it's £25 worth of perk box vouchers for winners, and the whole staff recognition scheme had been costed based on that being an individual, but the policy talked about potentially being a group of people, so we've amended it now so that it's an individual who gets the recognition, but it's part of being teamwork. So it is quite a small change, but yeah, it's something that's come up as we've moved on with the staff awards, which the next lot are coming out on Monday. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Seems like a very simple change in my
Mm.
world, and the fact that it was only ever intended to be an individual, really, I think when we spoke, it was just, yeah, it's just teamwork can convey different things, can't it? So I'm comfortable. Questions?
Just one, the only thing that worries me, most of us councillors don't know that we know certain stuff. We don't know all of them, and it feels a bit unfair to someone that may be doing some good work in one of the playing fields, and we never meet the chap. And probably deserve to be recognised, but because we wouldn't do it.
Come on the 17th of June and you'll get to meet everyone.
I can't. So one day I'll live somewhere else.
No, it is a good point, and I think that was recognised because one of the awards, specifically the Council in Recognition Awards, I think it was recognised at that point that it could end up being one of about 5 people that you guys have got a lot of interaction with. But hopefully, given that we've got, oh god, I'm going to embarrass myself, is it 6 categories altogether that people can be nominated for?
Yes.
It's Employee of the Year, Council of Recognition, I won't list them all
Rising
out,
star, yeah.
but we're hoping that by having that many categories that focus on different areas, that different people get recognition from those ones. And certainly last time we received a really high volume of nominations, didn't we? So fingers crossed we get good engagement again this time round.
I don't have any questions.
That's good. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll propose. Liam second. All those in favour?
Okay.
So we'll go on to agenda item number 16. I need to read this out, don't I? So that then we go into confidential session. So during discussions of the following item, agenda item 17, it may be necessary to pass the following resolution to exclude the press and public, having reflected on the presumption in favour of openness. This decision may be required because consideration of this matter in public may disclose information falling within one of the descriptions of exempt information in Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. The subcommittee will need to decide whether in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So the recommendation, which I'll propose, is that under section 100A/4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business at agenda item 17 on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of a particular person, including the authority holding that information. So I'm going to propose that. Liam second. All those in favour of going into confidential session? Go for it.
But a second to check. I'm always scared that it doesn't do it.
Yeah, quickly log on.
Let me just